Okay, last but not least, this is white birch. One of my favorite all-time trees. And you can see it's got birch polypores growing on the side of it. This one is not quite dead. It's still got just a little bit of life in it. There's one tiny branch right there, and a couple more tiny little branches that have some life left in them. But besides being good tinder itself, and just a wide variety of other uses, this is the tree that you will find chaga, or true tinder fungus, growing on. There's a lot of other birches. I've yet to find a chaga growing on any but the white birch, or I think some folks refer to it as paper birch. But you see these horizontal lines? That's very distinctive. Let me try and get a close up here. There we go. See those horizontal lines? I think most people know what a birch is. And see how that bark peels off? That's excellent tinder right there. Plus there's a lot of other uses for it, but that's where you find chaga. But I don't find it growing this far south. I start finding it, well, the only place I found it is up around the 45th parallel. And I'll find it in, you'll have mature forests of like ash and oak and beech, and then as you head down towards the swamp, you start seeing a lot more hemlock and birch, and that's where I find chaga. But really, I mean, you can find a birch growing anywhere. It just happens to, I think that's where it's most likely to be associated with, is the hemlock and the lower areas where there's water, you know, like near a river or near a swamp. You don't find too many of them up in the highlands because they seem to like water. That's white birch. That's where you find your true tinder fungus. And it's out of place here, and to be honest with you, this is the only white birch I've found in this whole entire area, and it is pretty much on its way out. And once it's gone, there won't be any more, because the deer, they really like eating the small birch saplings and twigs, so every little sapling that grows just gets chowed on by deer before it ever becomes a tree. Here's one. This one's fairly young. It might grow up and make it. I doubt it. But you can see this one is surrounded by a bunch of black locust trees. And like I showed you earlier, the easiest way to distinguish black locusts from a distance is by those S snake-like trunks that slither as they reach the sky. And this is how you typically find black locusts, in a stand like this where there's a whole bunch of it. And it really stands out because you see those swervy trunks of the trees, and it just stands out like a sore thumb. There's a lot of different tinder funguses that can be found. You know, I've mentioned 4, and I give you 4 specific trees that they grow on, and tried to give you an idea of the forest type they grow in, and a good shot, a good overview. But really, the thing to keep in mind is, you know, if you're just looking to have tinder, you don't need to identify the fungus. you don't need to identify the tree. All you need to do is walk out in the woods, and if you see a shelf-like fungus or some kind of growth on the side of a tree, you know, it might be tinder. I've used, since I made that tinder variety video, that's going to be in the link below here in the description, I've used countless different mushrooms for tinder. I've used morels, you name it. Any mushroom that's dry will likely work for tinder. Chaga is the best by far, and I would think the second best is probably that false tinder fungus. But that's not to say the other ones don't work good. I mean, if you look at that video where I demonstrate the use of these tinders, you should see that that cramp ball lit up really good, and it actually burned really well. And so did the reishi mushroom. Actually, the mushroom in the video, I don't believe it was actually reishi, it was ling chi. They do make a distinction. Ling chi is Ganoderma lucidum, and reishi is Ganoderma tsugae. Tsugae, however you pronounce that. But the Ganoderma lucidum can be found on just about any deciduous tree. But like I said, I've only found it on elm. The book I have says it can be found on maple, but all I've ever found on maple is Ganoderma aplantum, which is the artist conch fungus. But that mushroom too could be used for tinder just as easily as could just about any Ganoderma mushroom. What makes the shelf mushrooms nice for fungus is that they grow on the side of trees, so they're up off the ground and they're getting exposure to air and light, and that it just increases the chances of them being dry. Just like if you harvested branches that were up on the tree or leaves that were up on the tree, they're more likely going to be dry than all this stuff laying on the ground. Well, that pretty much does it. I showed you the 4 different trees. I'll try to put some pictures up at the end of this video, if I can find them, of the different funguses and what they look like. But to be honest with you, I can't just walk out in the woods and find these mushrooms every day. I only find chaga up north, and I haven't been up north in probably 3 years now because of the price of gas. I'm not going to contribute to the overprice of gas just by taking a leisure trip up north. But I think that should give you a real good idea of what you need to look for, and if it doesn't, then all I can tell you is get out in the woods and take a look for yourself and see what you find. Every area is different. When I hunt around here for these tinder funguses, I'm mainly looking for false tinder fungus or horse's hoof, because it's the most common one. It's the one that I know I can find, and it's the one that I know I can pretty much use on the spot if I need to. It's the one that I know will likely be dry inside even if it's been raining or snowing. But if I were up north, maybe I'm not in a beech woods and I can't find horse's hoof, but there's a whole lot of hemlock around. Well, then I'm going to be looking for reishi mushrooms, or varnish shelf, some call it. Ganoderma tsugae. And if I happen to be in a white birch woods, which is getting rarer and rarer every day, then I'm going to be looking for chaga. And if I can't find any of those, then I'm just going to be looking on these dead branches and hoping I find a cramp ball that I can use. And if I can't find that, then I'm just going to be looking on whatever tree it may be, because in reality, you don't need to identify the tree or the mushroom. All you need to do is put a fire steel to it and see if it works. But all these trees I've showed you have a lot more uses than just finding tinder fungus. But it would take me eons to explain all the uses, or to demonstrate the uses. Don't ever overlook the oak as a source for tinder fungus. I don't know what kind of fungus grows on it, but really all kinds do, and most of them can be used for tinder. I hope this was helpful to you, Crazy White Wolf 78. I had fun getting out here and doing it. I did it 2 days ago, and the video was like 2 hours long and just wasn't very much to the point. I think this video is going to be more concise and provide you with a clearer view of what you asked for, which was what trees those 4 mushrooms grow on, and what kind of woods they grow in. And hopefully, this is helpful to someone else too that might be interested, whether it be for gathering the mushrooms for medicinal purposes, or for using as tinder, or for artwork, or whatever you might want to use them for. They have a multitude of uses. But I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to head off here and make me a little fire, heat me up some snow, melt some snow, and make me some tea. And by then it should be getting dark and I'll head on home. But thanks for watching. There you go. Now see, this is a big old oak tree, and even though I really didn't mention the oak much in this video, the Ganoderma varieties of mushroom do grow on the oak. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if that is Ganoderma aplantum, the artist conch, or possibly a really large horse's hoof fungus, or possibly some other variety of Ganoderma. But like I said, it really doesn't matter. That will make good tinder, and that mushroom has been sitting on that tree for years now. So just because I showed you 4 different trees and 4 different mushrooms, don't go thinking that those are your only options. There's probably 100 different options out here, and they're good options to know, especially in weather like this. We had rain and warmth, then we had snow and warmth, and everything got completely waterlogged. And now today it has quit snowing and everything has frozen solid. So a lot of this stuff is going to be wet and it's going to be frozen, which is going to make getting a fire started quite difficult. But as long as you know where to find some mushrooms, or some bark, or some twigs, or whatever it may be, you can always find dry tinder in the woods.